Of course, before the break I was saying that we were having motocross through the mud and the dust. Well, quite obviously you cannot have mud and dust at the same time, and we will be seeing that it is extremely warm, dry and dusty here at Doetinchem, and that means that if you get into the lead of the race you have a distinct advantage because you can see where you're going and most of the other people can't. We are looking at the moment at the top contenders in the championship. There's Kees van der Ven on the Honda. Nearly all Japanese bikes, of course, as we've got so used to seeing these days, all Hondas, Kawasaki's and Suzuki's. There's Leon Gisbert on the number 19 Suzuki. These are all the top men in the championship. So the start of Heat 1 then. And an absolutely enormous field of bikes bears down towards the first corner, and this really is like city centre rush hour. Extreme concentration needed. Somebody's down in the midfield. That almost always happens. Very lucky not to be hit by anybody else. Alvin van Ashton. And another faller now on the hairpin after the start. That's Jan van Doren on the Kawasaki, one of the favourites to win this race. And Dave Strybos as well down. Now this really is a major upset because those are the two top contenders. We see again what happened. Well, I think really there were just too many bikes for the amount of circuit available, and somebody had to run into somebody else. Unfortunately, two of the top contenders involved in that kerfuffle, and you can see just how tricky the conditions are. It isn't nearly as easy as it looks. This really is a tremendous combination of judgment and strength. You need to have a lot of strength in your arms and legs to control these bikes in conditions like this, and of course throttle control is everything. You put the power on too early, you're going to lose it. You put it on too late, then you're going to be overtaken by about 4 bikes at once. So this really is a very skillful sport, and a lot of strength and judgment needed to stay on the bike, let alone win the race. They spend a lot of time flying too, as we'll see later around the lap. These bikes spend an inordinate amount of time in the air. They seem to fly as well as they go on the ground. But at the moment it's Carlo Hulsen who leads the race. And here he is, number 1, Carlo Hulsen on the Honda 500, followed by Pedro Tractor on the Suzuki. He's on a 250 bike. Those are the first two, and they're quite well away now from the rest of the field. And as you can see, most of the circuit goes through the woods, so it's important not to make a big mistake or you'll find yourself hitting something extremely solid. Spectators standing quite close to the track, but well, that's their problem if a bike comes off and goes into the crowd. We don't often see that. Most of these riders extremely skillful. Somehow they seem to manage to hang on over the 5 laps of each heat. Here's our leader, number 1, Carlo Hulsen. Wonderful jumps he makes over these hills. And if it's as exciting to do it as it looks, it must be quite a thrill. And there's Van Doorn working his way back up the field after falling early in the heat. He was one of the first men to fall. And the highest I think he can expect now in this heat really is 3rd position, because that's the man he's chasing, Leon Gisbert. Van Doorn chasing him for a position in the top 3. Quite tricky in the sunlight through the trees here. Some parts of the circuit, the riders getting dazzled, and of course they have plenty of muck and dust on their goggles at the same time. So a lot of the time they're partly on autopilot. There's Remy van Rijs on the Kawasaki, getting going again, but he will have lost a lot of places, falling off and stalling the machine there. And there really is only one good racing line through this stuff. You can see how badly the circuit is rutted. If you get very badly off the racing line, you are in deep, deep trouble. So the man with the checkered flag is ready to give victory to Carlo Hulsen. But where will Van Doorn be, the man who fell on the first lap and who ever since has been fighting his way back through the field? So, checkered flag for Carlo Hulsen, followed in by Pedro Tractor, I think that was, on number 3. And in 3rd place, it was Leon Gisbert, yes. And Van Doorn, in fact, in 5th position. He could get no higher than 5th, beaten into 4th there by Jan van Oorschot. So, Honda win from Suzuki. Heat 2 then, an equally crowded field. And let's see how many people fall at the first corner this time. You can see how easy it is to fall in this pack. Very difficult to see where you're going unless you're out in the lead. Whoops, and somebody's, oh goodness me, that must have given him a bit of a fright, I would think. Looked up to see about 12 motorcycles coming along at eye level. Anyway, somehow he got away with it, but he's right down at the back of the field. So a nasty fall there. Again on the first couple of corners. But everybody now safely away. Just as I say that, someone falls off. That's Jakob Bart on the Suzuki. Thank you, Jakob. Just as I was saying, the rest of the field safely through. Anyway, the leader, a good fight for the lead now, side by side, as they come round to end the first lap. We're at Doetinchem, by the way, for the Motocross Championships here. We have 3 heats to watch, and Van Doorn is down again. I don't believe this. What a terrible afternoon for Gert Van Doorn. And this time he looks as though he's stalled the engine again too. He really is giving himself a tremendous amount of work to do this afternoon, this man. He doesn't seem to be able to stay on the bike. He's obviously off form. And another faller. Behind, it looks like Carlo Hulsen leading yet again in Heat 2. And the marshals are trying to get this man to, it's Dave Strybos, they're trying to get him to clear the circuit because he's standing astride his bike right on the racing line with everybody coming round a virtually blind corner to find a stationary motorbike in the middle of the track. But it looks, Carlo Hulsen away in the lead again. He won the first heat and it looks as though he's going to do it again. Flying through the trees, wonderful sight that. Heaven knows how they land it straight, but they do. Hulsen dropping back now, I think. Leon Gisbert, 4th in the first heat, 5th now in the second heat. So he can expect a good aggregate result at the end of the afternoon if he stays on the bike for the rest of this race and the one to come. There's the second position man, Edvin Edvardsson. There's Hulsen. Down, I think, must be now in 3rd or 4th place with a lot of ground to make up. Alvin Ashton, who fell in the first heat, safely in the top 6. Also well up there, Kees van der Ven. Very popular sport this in Holland. You get a good crowd to watch it. Tremendous number of entries. And there's the leader, number 5, Evertsson. So he's left Hulsen way behind, and it looks as though it's going to be a fairly easy win for number 5. Edwin Evertsson. Pedro Tractor in 3rd place. Remy van Rijs well up there too. And this is right at the end of the championship, so points are extremely important this afternoon at Doetinchem. 3 heats to decide the points at the end of the day. And of course, championship honours at stake. Tractor in 2nd place for this heat, an improvement on his first race. Here comes Hulsen. Number 1 bike literally flying through the field. Very important, of course, to land on the back wheel. If you land on the front wheel, you are going to do a somersault. So, a victory wheelie. Victory wheelie for Edwin Evertsson. Takes a good win on the Kawasaki. From Tractor on the Suzuki, Hulsen on the Honda, Gisbert on the Suzuki. Accidents and people struggling to pick their bikes back up out of the dirt, but we've had very few retirements, so a full field for the 3rd heat of the day. This is where it usually goes wrong. I'm not going to say they're all through, because if I do they won't be, but it did look as though for the 3rd heat this time they all managed to get through the rush hour traffic of that first hairpin, and as you can see the sun has now dropped a lot lower in the sky. Some difficult shadows hiding the furrows and bumps on this very dusty circuit. Parts of the circuit, they're going to be very badly dazzled, so it's important to get right up at the front in the early stages of a motocross race like this. And you can see how hard they work with their legs. Remember earlier on we were saying there's the leader, Remy van Rijs on the Kawasaki. We were saying earlier on how important it is to have good strong arms and legs for this type of bike riding, because you're always working not only with your arms but also with your feet and controlling the throttle at the same time. And then of course for part of the lap you're actually flying it as well. So plenty to think about, and it is Remy van Rijs who leads this, the 3rd and final heat here at Doetinchem. Somebody nearly got his bike all mixed up in the tapes at the side of the track there, but he gets away with it, flicks it sideways. And Van Doorn well up too, the man who had that unfortunate fall in the first heat. Well, in fact, he fell 3 times. Here's Evertson, the winner of Heat 2, on the Kawasaki, down in 3rd position for the last race of the day. So, Van Race leads, Evertson 3rd. Van Doorn is in 4th. And Carlo Hulsen up there too in the top 5. There's Koning on the Honda, having a bit of a lonely race, Koning. And not such an exciting heat as the first 2, not as close at the front as we saw earlier in the day here. Perhaps they're getting tired. Anyway, there is the 2nd place man. We haven't seen who was 2nd before, that's Pedro Tractor. But some way behind the leader, Van Race. And it doesn't look as though he can get near him. Yes, a comfortable lead for Van Race. Look, there's really nobody in sight as he steers his way around towards the finish, over the bumps, through the ruts, through the dust. A very, very good race for Van Race. Pedro Tractor somewhere behind. Evertson in 3rd. And they look very steep, those bumps, don't they, when you get close up to them, a bit like the Grand National. But somehow they managed to get up, over and land safely. Still on the throttle. Very important to get back on the throttle as fast as you can, otherwise you lose so much momentum. Very popular in Holland, this motocross racing, much more popular really than here in Britain. And of course a lot of these good, quick Dutchmen come over here to race in Britain. Checkered flag then for Van Race. Good win for Remy Van Race. Pedro Tractor 2nd. Edwin Evertson in 3rd. Leon Gisbert.